How does Nokia's current most expensive device hold up after about 5 months of daily usage? The Nokia X30 has been my daily driver since about October, and while it's managed to live up to its expectations and even exceed them in some areas, some aspects definitely let me down. So if you're looking to pick one up now that it's received a couple of price drops, then you're definitely in the right place. And I'll start with the things that either lived up to my expectations or exceeded them. The first aspect is durability, which has been fantastic on this phone. And I'm not just talking about theoretically, I've actually dropped this phone multiple times, yet despite all the scuffs on the aluminum frame as I've been using the device without a case for a very long time, it always manages to survive and even surprised me a couple of times. I really think Nokia Mobile nailed it by going with this aluminum frame plastic back combination, which is underused these days, but it's the perfect blend of practicality as well as feeling quite premium in the hand. And despite my personal biases against the off-centered camera, I think the rest of the design is holding up pretty well. The flat and chamfered edges and the overall slightly more boxy design I think holds up pretty well to the test of time, and I don't think this phone is going to look outdated in the near future. Not going to be one of those super memorable devices that we think about in 10 years time, but it's not going to look dated anytime soon. The third aspect that's really good is the display. The colors, viewing angles, and brightness are all great for daily usage, and if I had to nitpick, I'd say I wish it was a bit smoother at 120 Hz, but I really can't complain about 90 Hz, which still feels smooth enough. And then there are the two aspects that immediately irritated the spec zombies, which ended up being non-issues on this X30. The first is the performance, which has actually improved over usage and with updates. The phone is generally smooth overall, and apps launch almost instantly. It never gets uncomfortably warm and can even handle gaming fairly smoothly. All things considered, a Snapdragon 7 series processor would have been ideal for this price point, but I really don't have any complaints about the day-to-day performance of the X30 with its Snapdragon 695 5G. And then there's battery life. Yes, it only has a 4250 mAh battery capacity, but I don't think it has negatively impacted my overall user experience. I end most days between 20 and 25% battery charge left, and that's with heavy usage. So I'm constantly getting over 6 hours of screen on time with mixed usage, that's including Wi-Fi and 5G. And with my usage pattern, I do charge this phone every single night. So this isn't a battery endurance champion by any means, but I almost never had to worry about running out of charge before the end of the day. Something I completely forgot to talk about is Face to Unlock, which is a feature I really love on the X30. I wasn't expecting to use it that often, as I like using the fingerprint scanner usually, and yes, it definitely isn't as secure as something like Face ID. The speed at which the phone unlocks once you have that enabled is absolutely incredible. It's just instant. You don't even get a chance to look at the lock screen before the phone is already ready to use. And the final thing I like about the X30 is some aspects of its camera, which has been a bit of a mixed bag, but I'll start by talking about the good things. Nokia Mobile has actually updated the camera app, so it now includes more features than at launch, which is always a great thing. But the best aspect about this camera is its low light performance. I did a casual comparison between the X30 and the iPhone 14 Pro, and I was left more impressed by the Nokia's images more times than I was with the iPhone's images. And that really tells you a lot about how capable this is for low light photography. It almost always manages to handle sharpness, highlights, and colors better than the iPhone, and the images definitely look more lively. So in this particular regard, it definitely punches above its weight. Now moving on to the disappointments, and I'm actually going to also start with the camera. The phone just isn't that great at capturing landscape images, and a big part of the reason why is because the HDR tuning is way too aggressive. The sample should hopefully highlight how much difference there is between capturing images without HDR and with HDR. Honestly, the phone's camera is really good when you remove HDR completely off, but obviously that doesn't work in every single situation, as sometimes you require the HDR effect in order to capture the balance between the highlights and the lowlights. So in general, I feel like the phone's camera has huge potential, but I don't think it fully lives up to them. So with HDR on, the images look way too artistic and colorful, and I do think that it's in a negative way. There's also halo effects around subjects, and the images just look a bit too bright. I do think that the way that the Nokia 9 PureView handles HDR is fantastic, and I wish this had similar processing in that regard. And I do think that it's not that hard to actually fix that, and I hope that Nokia Mobile does. I really don't understand when OEMs decided that shadows and contrast are evil, but it really needs to stop. The second disappointing aspect about the X30 has been its loudspeaker. For what is essentially a premium mid-ranger, I really do expect better quality speakers here. On low volumes, there's a static sound which just shouldn't be there at all, and I feel like with time the speaker quality is actually getting worse when listening to audio at high volumes. When I first got my X30, I compared it against the 8.3, which has a decent quality speaker, and the sound quality was almost identical. But now when I put them side by side, the X30 sounds a bit more tinny, and I don't understand why. I really expected better, and I hope that with the next iteration we actually get a dual speaker setup, which I think would have solved this problem entirely. And the final disappointing aspect is, where is Android 13? I'm a big believer in getting updates when they are ready, but for a stock Android experience and a device running on Android 1, I do expect speedier updates, especially considering that this is currently Nokia's most expensive device. It's been around 6 months since Android 13 has been officially launched, and it's still nowhere to be found for the X30. However, Nokia's other X lineup like the X20 and the XR20 have already received Android 13, so here's hoping that the update isn't too far off for the X30. Now I would love to hear your thoughts. Do you own a Nokia X30, and how has your experience been with the device so far? What's your favorite aspect, and which aspects aren't you too fond of? Share your thoughts with me in the comments below. If you're into nostalgic content, check out my Nokia nostalgia content here, or check out my comparison between the X30 and the G60 here. Thank you guys very much for watching. Please don't forget to share, like, and subscribe to support the channel, and I shall see you in the next one.